Hey, we're here and we're having a fun time with Leo MacLeod, who is the owner of Training Coaching Pie. And Leo specializes in helping technical people with emotional intelligence to be better leaders. And he's the author of Coaching and Mentoring for Dummies and From the Ground Up, Stories and Lessons from Architects and Engineers who Learn to be Leaders. So Mr. Leo is going to help us out today and tell us about building a business, especially if you're building a coaching or consulting business, or if you are a manager. We have lots to talk about as far as tapping into our emotions, dealing with people, doing the right thing, strategies, mindset, transitioning, leading, all that cool stuff. So, Mr. Leo, glad to see you.
Nice to see you, Robert. How are you? How's your son doing, by the way? Another Leo.
Oh, he is about to turn 5, and it's a wonderful name. It's nice and simple, but it's also unique at the same time. So he makes me laugh all the time. We have a blast. We go for walks. We high five. We handshake. All the usual toddler stuff. Or I guess not toddler.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Uh-oh, and now we're fighting a bad internet connection, but we'll still make it work. So we introduced you, and in your own words, what are you all about? What did I leave out in that introduction, and what is your current focus?
Wow. I think you covered a lot. You know, I am really, I exist to help people. I exist to help people where they're at, reach their goals, which I'm probably any coach would say. But I think where I kind of differ from other folks is that I don't have a specific plan. I don't have a program. Okay. I do have some ideas. I have some things that have worked, but I built my business on really listening to people and not taking a cookie cutter approach. And it's worked. My business is called Training Coaching Pie because I learned that pie is a very strong motivator to get people to sit through any kind of workshop. I had a group of construction folks who were sitting in a series of workshops. The president of the company wanted everyone to participate. And I said, it's not really a good idea. It's best if we have like the people who actually want to be there. And he said, no, I think we want to have everyone there. So they crowded the lunchroom for 4 sessions. They brought everybody in. They had pizza, they had beer, they had root beer, they had soda, soda and pizza. And I did my thing on the first day. I came back the second time next week and I said, well, what did you learn? And I said, well, I think you told us if we stick it out for 4 times, we get pie. And what I did on that 4th time is actually came in because I bribed them. I said, look, if you stick it out, I'll make you pie. I made them pie. And everyone was there except for the safety manager in this construction company. And he greeted me at the door. He had made a pie for me the night before. He said, I appreciate what you've done. I really got a lot out of this. I can't make it. And I want to make a deposit to you, which is one of those concepts that I talked about. And I made you a pie. So yeah, that's a little bit about my little story about my origin story.
Well, very nice. So you make it fun and you make people want to be there. And everyone, like you said, like you go without a plan, but you still, I'm sure, have your own concepts, tendencies, styles. So out of all these people that you've helped, all these things you've done, is there anything that you think is noteworthy as far as how you stand out from the rest?
Well, I actually have got that feedback from people that say you don't come in with your program to sell us. You're not trying to sell us what you want. You're listening to our needs. And I think that's how I started my business, is really understanding, okay, who is my audience and what do they need, and really listening to them and then working hard to solve their problems. And that's my entire consulting business was just based on getting in front of people and building that trust to understand essentially what do they need, even if I didn't feel like I actually knew how to do that. Somebody told me early on to say yes and then figure out how to do it. And I built my entire business on that principle. I remember there was a engineering firm that called me up and said, well, we've got some folks here who need some emotional intelligence skills and building. And at the time I was early in my career. And as I'm talking to the person on the phone, I'm typing emotional intelligence into Google. And yeah, oh yeah, I do this. Yeah, I do. It's just a different name. And then I got a hold of the company that did the emotional intelligence assessment. I said, look, you need to bring me up to speed. These people have got an issue. They got a problem. I understand it. And, we need to work together to deliver something. So it's my whole business is about really finding the need and then pursuing that need.
Well, and that's very logical. And the first thing that comes to mind when you mention that is that needs are tricky, right? Because someone might like tell you that, well, I need emotional intelligence, but then
Yeah.
partway through you figure out something else, or maybe like they don't even know what they need, or you're just having this conversation or this presentation off this quick first impression. You say, well, what does this audience need? Well, I don't know. I've just met them. I just started talking. And so have you ever sometimes had to think on your feet, other than saying, committing and saying, hey, I know this, but I'll figure it out later? But like, have you ever like had to help out a team and get something figured out and maybe like change course midway?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm thinking about that because I don't people are all over the map in that regard. I'll walk through the door and people, yeah, I know what you need. This is what we need. Like I had an engineering firm. Well, we have problems with time management. Oh, really? It's like, okay, well, I got a program for that. I do have a program for that. I've got an idea of how we can solve that. But more often it's like what you say, which is people say, well, you know, I think we need some training with our folks, like really broad. Like, well, what problem are you trying to solve? At the end, what difference will it make in your business? Why are we having this conversation? What are the things that are keeping you up at night? And a lot of it is investigation of throwing things at them and saying, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? I actually came up with kind of a spreadsheet to help people identify, here are the skills basically that I teach for emotional intelligence. Are these things that you feel like you're adequate on or you could need improvement? And then another column, which is like, is this really important to your job? Is it critical or is it just like not that important? And that process initially, I send it out. If people are lost, like you say, and they're not sure what they need, that tool has been an effective investigative tool to kind of help narrow down where do we start. Because people have got limited time and limited budgets for stuff. They might say we need all this leadership training, all this communication training. Like, well, really? Like, okay, but you know, let's get it. Let's focus in on the stuff that is going to give you the biggest bang.
Yeah, and focus in on the sub components, the sub problems, right? Someone says, hey, time management, emotional intelligence. Well, that can be a lot across the map. And you say, well, hey, what about this and this piece? Is that a
Right.
good place to start? Is that a logical order of importance? And we've mentioned
Right.
emotional intelligence a couple of times so far, and that's for sure one of those concepts where like different people have different ideas. And without having the luxury of running to Chat GPT or Google while we're talking here, like someone says emotional intelligence to me, I think about like empathy and self-awareness and controlling your emotions, but that's just first impressions. So what is emotional intelligence actually, and what are the pieces of it?
Well, okay. So there's kind of a rubric that you can kind of look at, which is there's four quadrants. And that's basically there's a little book that I use in my training called the Emotional 2.0. Travis Bradbury does a really nice job of breaking it down, and he breaks it down in terms of that there's four quadrants. There's one is your self awareness. Okay, it's awareness of yourself. There's self management. So you may know that you get triggered in when people are in your face, and then you blow up or you run. Well, the management part is what do you do about that, right? How do you manage that? So that's just the you part. So your awareness of your behavior, your emotions, your triggers, your motivations, and then your management of those things effectively. Number three is your awareness of other people, understanding how people are different, reading their cues, listening to like how they communicate, what their style is. Are they fast talkers? Are they kind of withdrawn? I know reading body language. That's social awareness. And then the last part is called relationship management, which is actually weaving all those things in together in order to be an effective communicator and an effective manager. So it's understanding people, it's understanding yourself, and it's that dance between what's going on here, how am I reacting, what's going on for me, what's going on for them, and how do we kind of move through whatever issue and defining it. I do say that there's another way that I like to put it, is that there's really two triggers that you really need as a manager, actually as a person. One is clarity and the other one's empathy. That's it. Clarity is, do we have a clear understanding of what's required or what the problem is or what I said or what you feel like the scope of your work is or your job? Or you were talking earlier about getting clarity on the scope of what somebody wants for a client. Number one, it's like I can have empathy for their situation, but if I don't have clarity on what the issue is, really clarity, drilling it down, I'm not going to be able to help them. So those two things are really important. It's really important to know where somebody's coming from and what they need, and then also to be able to have the bandwidth to say, I really want to help this person. I want to try to understand them, but also going back to clarity. If you've got somebody, let's say you're managing somebody, and you're really clear about the scope, and then they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just so overworked and I can't do this, and it's not really, I don't really like the work. It's like, okay, you could be kind of empathetic to what they're saying, but you have to be clear also about that this is their job, right? This is what's
Yeah.
required. Like someone has to do this. Like I empathize with where you're at, but I'm going to go back to clarity. And I find more and more that the clarity part is missing in most business equations, or just actually personal communication issues. Number one, clarity.
I love it. And this is great how you simplified this for us because it can be so tough to change our bad habits, right? To change our ways. And we might not even be aware of what we're doing wrong or care enough to do something different. And you say, well, hey, are you doing these two things? If not, like, which is the one that you need to work on first? Like, work on clarity and defining that problem and
Yep.
figuring out what the you're working on, and then
Yep.
empathy, like, do you understand where they're at and what their needs and their problems are? And so, but then on the other hand, people are tricky, right? Because you can give people advice, but then they disregard it, they don't follow it. So in all of your travels and your trainings, where do people not implement? Like, what happens if you tell them to do this and then you come back weeks later and they still haven't done it? What's the problem?
Well, so I always start here. And even though I'm kind of, I say I don't have a system, I do have a method to my madness, and it always starts with understanding and probing into, back to clarity. What is their motivation? What's their personal motivation? And I put in terms of a mountain. 3 years from now, if you're looking out the window and there was a mountain in the distance, what is that mountain? Where would you be? Where would you have to move towards? Because you're not going to get to that mountain right away, but it's in the distance. You can move towards it. What is it personally and professionally? What has to happen for you to be happy with your progress? What does your life look like in 3 years? Are you married, or maybe the kids are out of the house? Maybe you're doing yoga. Maybe you're lost some pounds. Maybe you're toned up. I'm 68, and my massage therapist said, "Hey, you got about 7 years to build some body mass, muscle mass, because then you can start losing." I'm like, okay, that's part of my mountain. um, yeah, at work, do you want to kind of develop yourself as a leader, lead a department, make a certain amount of money, maybe start a new division? What is your mountain? If you start and you really help people define their own personal goals, not just for the business, but for themselves, and that's the first part, then you can say, okay, how do we get you there? Because if people are engaged in this, then they'll do the work. That's all. It all comes down to personal motivation. It all comes down to how badly they want to change. I've seen people make amazing strides in changing because they were so motivated in their situation that they weren't getting to their mountain. They were stuck, or they were going to, like, I don't know, get fired or something. And it's like, okay, do you want to keep your job? Yeah, I'd love to keep my job. Well, here's what you need to do to keep your job. It's like, okay, I'll do that. But if it's sort of like they don't really know where they want to go, or they don't really want to have to put the steps to get there, then it's like, you know, they're not going to be motivated. They're not going to be engaged.
Yeah, and it's a simple enough recipe to get there, right? Is that if you say you're unmotivated, you're not engaged, well, do you even know what you're building towards? Do you know what that mountain in 3 years is? And if not, then figure it out. And then if you do figure that out, then now you can break down the steps that are to get there, and you can think about how excited you are or will be when you're on your way. And that way it can be more about just clocking in and spending the time and getting a paycheck and not getting fired. Like those are lame, mild, mediocre goals, right? You want something exciting. And you mentioned something a moment ago about you had someone that like gave you a really great answer. So like, what was that? Like, have you come across someone where they didn't really know and they took your advice and they said, oh my gosh, like here's my mountain. And you were just blown away. Anything come to mind?
Hmm. You know, yeah. I had somebody who was had terminal breast cancer who I was coaching, and of course she had to take a leave from office from her work, and she was actually probably had 6 months to live, if less than that, and she wanted to continue this coaching, and I went into her house. She's undergoing chemotherapy. She was just in rough shape, and I said, well, how do you ask the person who's got a limited amount of time what their mountain is? You know, um, probably get emotional thinking about this because I haven't thought about this in a while. But anyway, she said, I want to bring love into the workplace. I'm like, what? I mean, it just blew me away. It's like, I want to bring love into the workplace. Like, that was, I mean, look, if you heard that, right, from somebody who had a limited amount of time to live, you'd be like, wow, that kind of rocked me. It inspired me. It's like, it's never too late to have goals that are big and hairy and audacious. So anyway, I don't know. That's what came to mind just when you said that, thinking about that story, because it inspired me. It's like, here's somebody who has no time left and yet is not giving up, and I thought that was really awesome. Yeah,
I think it is because I mean, so you do pull through, and you hear about those kinds of stories all the time, right? Is that you have a lot
yeah,
more time than you thought, and then well, if you gave up like as soon as you got that bad news, and then you had more time, well, then you're really self sabotaging. So
yeah,
like why not pursue those amazing goals? And we're in the last few minutes of our conversation here, Mr. Leo, and I want to make sure that we
yeah.
talk about you and what interests and excites you. So in the spirit of that, is there a missing question in our conversation that I should be asking you and just don't know to ask you?
Huh. Yeah. Well, what is my mountain these days? My mountain is to continue to help people. I've got my book here from the ground up. It's got, it's a recipe for how to move from being a doer to a leader. I rewrote a classic coaching and mentoring for dummies. So these are all available. I'm available online. I've got online courses, and I'm still available. I'm interested in helping people, however it works. So I encourage people to get a hold of me.
Very nice. And so to get a hold of you, there's two books you mentioned. There's Coaching and Mentoring for Dummies, and then From the Ground Up. And as far
Yeah,
as that contact information, is there a website? Is there a LinkedIn? How can someone contact you?
just LeoMacLeod.com. It's all there.
All right. LeoMacLeod.com. And
Yep.
do that if Leo's message and story resonated with you. He's developed a simple to follow program to transition from doer to leader. And
Yep.
in this amazing book, From the Ground Up, he talks about how to organize your workday for success, how to delegate tasks confidently, learn to say no tactfully, mentor your team, and so much more. And before I let you go, Mr. Leo, and as people are going to leomacleod.com, it's
Yeah.
time for the scary part of the show where I try to stump you, I try to put you on the spot by asking you for a quote or lesson that has served you. So, what do you have for a fun quote or lesson?
I really like Maya Angelou's quote. People won't remember what you say. They won't remember what you do, but they'll remember how you make them feel.
Very nice. And that's so true. And I used to not believe it when I was younger, but that's what, like, we all think about something from decades ago, what someone
Hmm.
said or did or didn't do, made us feel good, made us feel bad. So why not do the right thing, be a good person, leave a positive,
Yeah,
lasting impression? And the
yeah,
very first step to getting on that track is by going to LeoMacLeod.com. That's the hub where you can find out all about Mr. Leo and especially his book, From the Ground Up: Stories and Lessons from Architects and Engineers Who Learned to Be Leaders. It's
yeah,
very relevant, very helpful for you if you're engaged in business mentoring and coaching. So go ahead, do it right now, leomacleod.com. And thank you much, Mr. Leo, for showing up, stopping by, helping us out. Thank you very
you're welcome.
much.
Sure. All right, later. Bye.